entering the Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog Fantasy, FedEx St. Jude Classic, first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs, final bets, the weather, DraftKings ownership, research, Underdog plays for Thursday. So basically I'm taking the Research Sunday show, which I did not do this week because I was away, and the normal Tambo show on Wednesday, minus Tambo, and combining them into one. You can use the time codes to skip around to what you want to hear, but that is what I'm going to be doing for this week. Tambo will be back next week in studio. We'll have both the BMW Championship, DraftKings Picks, and final thoughts, and I think we're going to pre-record an NFL DFS strategy show, which people love every single year, so please go check that out right now. And use code MAYO at Underdog Fantasy. You've missed out on the PME Cup for the FedEx Cup playoffs. Those drafts are closed. It filled very quickly. Thank you very much for that. There's still the Pup Cup on the go, $20K to first place under the drafts tab on Underdog. And I don't have the official layout yet for the NFL PME Props Classic. Essentially, it's going to be a season-long props pool on Underdog Fantasy. More information coming on that in the coming days, but if you do want to get in on that, and I think we're going to have some pretty sweet prizes for first place, second place, probably top 10 in terms of just actual cash payouts on top of what you can win on your pick'em entries, go use code MAYO right now. Get that $250 first-time deposit bonus, or up to, and get yourself acclimated to the Underdog gang, because we're going to have a ton of fun for football, and if we do really well with football for this, I'm guessing we're going to run it back next year on Underdog for all of golf season for Pick'em Props as well, so please go use code MAYO if you haven't already, and support the show. If you really want to dig into the season-long props, DFS stuff for football, runthesims.com projections are completely free right now with a free, or if you type in your email at runthesims.com, code MAYO will get you 10% off all of the simulations, DFS tools, the prop sniper for all the sports books, and Underdog at the same time. So I recommend you check all of that out. We got tons going on here over the next few days, but I do want to dig in to the course itself at TPC Southwind. You'd think for the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs that you would have a professional flyover, not one that you have to take from a simulator, but sometimes you have to deal with handle the cards that you're dealt with this. So TPC Southwind, it's in Memphis, it's super hot, sweat-ass season for some of the heftier guys, and even some of the guys who just sweat a lot on the PGA Tour. You'll notice it on the back of their pants. It happened to Robert Garrigus. He is the most famous example in 2010, but even Lucas Glover, when he was coming down the stretch last year, if you got him to sit on some upholstered seating after the fact, it'd be pretty wet afterwards. You thought someone would have peed the pants like he's Miles Davis being cool out here. But he ended up beating Patrick Cantlay in a playoff. 7,243 yards is a par 70 champion Bermuda grass greens. The average green size very small, some of the smallest, 4,300 square feet, 75 bunkers in play across the course, and 11 numbers of holes which feature water. A few notes about the winners. Lucas Glover won in a playoff a year ago. Will Zalatoris won the year before that in a playoff over Seb Straka, both at 15 under. Abraham Answer was 16 under when he won a three-man playoff over Sam Burns and Hideki Matsuyama in 2021 when that was a WGC event. Justin Thomas won at minus 13 in 2020. Brooks Koepka minus 16 in 2019. Now, before that, it was just the St. Jude Classic. It wasn't an elevated event. It wasn't a playoff event. Now we have no-cut top 70 players, and that's exactly identical to what we saw a year ago. The year before that, they still had the top 100 players, and there was a cut of the top 70 in ties. That is no more. Previous to that, you had winners like Dustin Johnson, Daniel Berger back-to-back, Harris English, Dustin Johnson again, Harrison Frazier, Lee Westwood, but these were not top-tier events. These were full-field, 156-player events. That is not what we have seen in the past 5 iterations at TPC Southwind. And despite playing 7,238 yards, after adjusting for par, Southwind is covertly one of the longer courses on tour. It's similar to Riv in that aspect. Copperhead is another one that plays longer than its scorecard adjusted to par and elevation. And previous to hosting the FedEx St. Jude Invitational, it was the host course of the St. Jude Classic. And all of the history prior to 2019 for this tournament, when you look at certain sites, especially on PGATour.com, was actually for the tournament at Firestone. It was the WGC Bridgestone. That's what this became. It's now just, you'll figure it out once you go in. But just look at the past 5 years to 2019 if you really want a good sense of the types of players that do well at this tournament, because they've been the stronger type fields versus basically what we saw last week at Wyndham. Memphis has now been a PGA Tour stop every year since 1958, however, so deep ties to the region. Obviously, FedEx is in the region, so that makes a lot of sense when that's your overall tour title sponsor. Since the 2004 course overhaul, more than 5,000 balls have gone for a rinse. That's a serious number, by the way. Over 5,000. That's the most water balls of any course on tour, almost 1,000 more than second place TPC Sawgrass. And it's even more pronounced now that Southwind has been hosting limited event fields for the past 5 years, where it's 144 players in the Players' Championship. So it's kind of nuts to think about. Most of the wetness are going to be absorbed by hole 12 and 18. Number 12 has seen more than 900 balls get wetter than Ethan Hawke in training day. My man. John Daly holds the record for most dips in the lakes with 48. And over the past 12 years at TPC Southwind, only 3 winners have finished worse than 16th for the week in strokes gained off the tee, and no winner has finished outside the top 20 that year in strokes gained approach when they won the trophy. Driving accuracy, 56%, greens and regulation, 60%, almost 10 percentage points below the standard course events. A lot of that has to do with thin fairways, 25 yards in length. When you just look at the tee on number 18, you can see why guys go in the woods straight or in the water left, because there ain't nowhere to land. Moving over to FantasyNational.com, we can get a sense of TPC Southwind as we take a look at the scorecard itself. The par 3s average 184 yards in length. They have a par rate all of 65% or over. There's little room for separation. As a result, none of these holes rank as the top 5 hardest or top 5 easiest. You just take a par, maybe you can make a birdie, move on. There's a few of them. I mean, we saw the Will Z playoff a few years ago where you can get yourself in a bad way, potentially. I think that's I want to say it's number 11, where he put it into the rocks and then ended up taking a drop. Strzok had double dipped and he had to make the putt for bogey in order to win the tournament on the 3rd playoff hole. But if you just stay out of the water, just hit the center of the green, 2-putt, be on your way, because the scoring is really going to happen on the 2 par 5s, which are the 2 easiest holes on the course, number 16 and number 3. Number 16 has a 3.1% eagle rate, 1.6% eagle rate on number 3, and 16 is essentially gettable by every single player in the field, regardless of length, at only 530 yards. Then you get to the par 4s, an average distance of 450 yards. 3 of the 4 toughest holes on the course are back 9 par 4s, 2 of which carry a double or worse rate north of 5.5%. And you can see there's no real gimmies here. Number 2, yeah, it's over a 20% birdie rate. Number 6, right around there. Other than that, you have number 15, which is a shorter par 4, but still, you have a bogey rate of 13%, a double or worse rate. It really does balance itself out. Very few of these holes actually play under par in terms of the par 4s. It's just 2, 6, and that's marginal at best, and 15. They're the only ones. Then you start getting into the really difficult ones. I mentioned number 18. That's the 4th toughest hole on the course. Number 17 is the 2nd most difficult on the course. Then you have number 12, which plays as the 3rd most difficult, and almost 7% double or worse rate, and almost 20% bogey or worse rate. It's just you land in the water off the tee. You're either playing 3 from the absolute worst spot possible, or, yeah, I mean, that's what you're doing. Then you try not to double dunk it into the water. Number 5 is also incredibly difficult. It has an over 30% bogey or worse rate with only a 7.7% birdie rate. So there's a lot of big numbers to be had. That's not to say that guys don't make birdies. There's some very low scores at this course. As you can see, the single round scores, like even last year, I think Spieth opened up with a 63. Tom Kim was 64. Like, there's a lot of low numbers being a par 70. So 7 under par is no joke. The most average scores, though, are 69, so 1 under or even par. Then it's 1 over or 1 under. When we get to Underdog Pick'em in a minute, we're going to try to exploit that a little bit. We've seen a lot of really poor putters do well at this course over the years. It's a big ball striking, a big tee to green course, because some of the chipping is very difficult at this course. Like, scrambling is going to be, scrambling is pretty high in terms of the overall percentages, except when you're scrambling after you hit it into the water. But just ball striking in general is going to end up being so key that a lot of 2-putt for pars, try to beat up on the par 5s. Like, with minus 15 sitting around the winning score. If he can get to minus 15, you're probably going to win, or at least force a playoff. That's what we've seen the majority of the years over the past half decade. When we start thinking about that, beat up on the par fives, go minus 8 for the week on the par fives because there's eagle opportunities at number 16, and then just tread water and hope to make a few longer putts along the way. Make a few of those 15 footers. Don't miss any of the 3 footers, and that's how you should probably end up around 15 under par. But as I mentioned before, driving accuracy 56%, greens and regulation 60%. That's something we can help try to exploit. More of those numbers will become available later on Wednesday on Underdog if that's what we're going to truly be trying to exploit. I have something cooked up already for a first round play, and we can get to that right now before we jump over to Fantasy National. As I mentioned before, code Mayo at Underdog Fantasy will get you a deposit bonus of up to $250, and you can jump in on the pick'em. Get acclimated with the pick'em, because I said that season-long tournament is coming. It's coming around for you for football season. If it does well enough, we're going to get the golf one too, so you can see what we're doing for some of these entries. So I have Xander higher than 1.5 bogeys or worse. Bogeys can be, unless you're playing a very clean round. And this is what I look for, despite the fact that Xander's been a top-end player for years now. But what I thought was interesting about some of his results from this course is that they're really, really bad. There's something with the sight line at this course that really throws him off. So you can see his best finish at the St. Jude was 2020. That was in a WGC. He came 6th place. Other than that, he has a lot, and that was the 1 year where he basically gained strokes off the tee. In 5 of the past 6 years, he's lost at least 1.3 strokes off the tee, and that's even while playing pretty well in some other facets. Now, it's Xander. He's having an amazing year. He's a better player now than he's ever been at any point of his career. However, 1.5, even on a bad day, you guys are going to bogey 1.5% of holes, or 1.5 holes. That's one water ball. Just give everyone kind of a water ball, just based on averages. They're not all going to hit it into the water, obviously, but put one in, then there you go. There's one bogey, and then miss like a 5-footer. There's 2 bogeys, and you're off to the races. Matt Fitzpatrick, this one is a multiplier. It's 1.1. I have him at 2.5 bogeys or worse. He had a really good run at one of the tournaments here a few years back, but he withdrew from the Olympics with a quote-unquote wrist injury. We haven't seen him since. I'm just going to kind of bank on the fact that he's not having a great year anyway, and he might be hurt. So let's go with the higher than 2.5 bogeys or worse. And I just took guys that I think are going to play pretty well. Tom Kim, 4 birdies or better, higher. Russell Henley, 4 birdies or better, higher. Justin Thomas, 4 birdies or better, higher. I also bet Justin Thomas at first round leader, since I believe he has been the first round leader in 2 of his past 2 events. Yeah, the Open and the Genesis, or Scottish Open were the 2. So what does that bring us to here? 20-1 if we get all 5 right. And so I'll play this both ways. We'll go 100 on the 5 correct. So we'll play that one. We'll confirm it. We could not detect your location. All right. So I'm on a different computer than I'm normally on. So I will play this one. I'll put the link down in the description. So I'll play it $100 to win $2,000 on those 5. And I'll also play the flex that does give me the out. And I'll play that one for 150 because I think I'm limited to 250 max on each player, where essentially I'll win $120 if 4 of 5 go correct across the 2 entries. And if all 5 are correct, I'll still win $3,500. So that's the way that I'm going to play Underdog for round 1. Hit the description right now in order to get, you can just click the link and tail the entry. Or if you just want to fade it, click the link and then just change the highers to lowers and lowers to highers, and you're off to the races. I will probably try to put another one into the newsletter on Wednesday evening once the fairways numbers come out and the greens and regulation number come out, because that's where we've had the most success so far this season. Anyone who tried to play last week's for the Wyndham was voided because round 1 was washed out. So for my final bets for this week, I'm playing 4 outrights. Am I going to add another? Maybe. I already talked about Justin Thomas, first round leader. He's been like the king of the first round. And he's been really good at this course over the years. If we take a look at it, try to dig in on Justin Thomas. Obviously, he's not having his best season. But it's not as bad as I think a lot of people would lead you to believe. The driving is getting kind of bad. We've seen him heat up with the approach. It's been bad at the U.S. Open. It was bad at the Genesis or at the Scottish Open after leading in the first round. But he's actually turned the putter around quite a bit. Now, gaining 1.5 and gaining 0.5 strokes in a tournament isn't great, but I think he's won this tournament with less, for one. And he was losing 3 per tournament going in. So he's had a very poor putting season. That's really been the crux of his issues, and that's usually something that you can turn around quite nicely. You can see, yeah, he's won here twice. He won here twice. He didn't win here twice. This is what I'm talking about, because some of the scraping that goes on between the PGA Tour. This is actually at Bridgestone in 2020. He did win here while losing almost 2 strokes putting, but just tearing it up tee to green, which he normally does. You need the one good putting round from JT. You pray it's round 1, and all of a sudden he's first round leader. Spieth was the first round leader here a year ago. But the guys that I'm actually betting, I went over this on the show with Jeff on Tuesday, if you haven't checked that out. Ludwig is up first for me. I actually used my boost on him at Bet365, a 30% boost, to bring him from 24 to 30 to 1, or right around there. He's just been playing very solid golf. Like tee to green, he's been amazing. He's been playing very well on par 70s over the course of the year as well. His only 2 major blips were at the 2 majors, at the Open and the PGA Championship. Those were the 2 bad ones for him so far this season. Even at the Travelers, at a Pete Dye short course, like he lit it up. He almost lost 8 strokes putting. You're not going to do he still came T27 in that event, of basically these exact same guys, but couldn't putt to save his life. Generally speaking, he's been very good on the greens, been very good on bent and Bermuda. And again, this is championship Bermuda so far this week. I like him a lot. There's only 5 players in this field, I believe, who are, let's see, I can look this up for you, who are both top 25 in both distance and accuracy over the past 24 rounds coming in, and he is one of them. The other guys are Scotty Scheffler. Let's see here. The numbers are, Tom Kim's close. He's 27th. Scheffler, Vegas, Keegan Bradley, Ludwig, Davis Thompson, who I also bet, Mav McNeely, who you probably don't want to bet, Sam Burns, Rory, and Sam Burns is the total list. Rory just misses out. Tom Kim just misses that list, as does, where is it? Jordan Spieth. Is another one who just barely misses that list. Xander is down there as well. So we're starting off with Ludwig. This has also been a place over the years where I do think that the breakout after a good season, where this ends up becoming their crowning achievement of the year, would be one thing that I'd be looking at. And obviously he's had a big year. He won at RSM in November, but no wins in the calendar year of 2024. I would have applied the same logic to Morikawa. I like Morikawa. I just don't like his odds this week. If I can bet Hideki and Ludwig at the same number, well, then that's what I'm going to end up doing. Hideki is next on the card for me. I got him at 30 to 1 as well. And, he's just been playing off and on really decent golf, followed by poor stretches. He was just 3rd place at Le Club National at the Olympics and has had some really good runs here. He's played this event 4 of the 5 times it's been an elevated or a WGC. He was very poor his first time, then nothing worse than 20 in the previous 3 or the past 3 starts there. We've seen his putter be a little bit better as of late at some of these bigger events. The driving, we just need him to be accurate. I really don't care about driving distance as much as accuracy this week. Do not be playing from the rough. In his approach game, he goes hot and cold. He'd probably be a better first round leader bet, but I start thinking about the guys that can knock off the Schefflers of the world, the Xanders and the Rorys of the world, and these are the guys that I'm looking at. Davis Thompson, as mentioned, is another bet for me at 80 to 1 with 8 places. Maybe it's 5 places. I'll have to go look at that one. But again, just a guy who's been playing great golf. I have noticed guys that have won the John Deere and also played well at the Valspar Championship have done quite well at this tournament over the years. Even to take a look back on it, the Wyndham is another one that you can point to. And it's fresh in our minds that Glover won the Wyndham, then he won this tournament back-to-back last year. Now, yeah, of course, that's a lot of recency bias, but you just see a lot of like Billy Horschel's and Russell Henley's, guys that hit a lot of fairways, stay out of the rough, stay out of the water here, and hit their approaches really well. Hopefully they can putt pretty well coming into this. So you see Davis Thompson was the winner. Aaron Rai ended up inside the top 10 as well. Ben Griffin is on that list. Eric Cole, I was thinking about playing as first round leader as well. He actually had a pretty good run in the first round here a year ago, and he's going to need to do something. He's playing some good golf coming in, top 10s in 3 of his past 10 starts, and he was T31 here a year ago. Had a very bad weekend at that event. Who else? We've seen Denny show some run at Southwind in the past. The Todd Father is another one who's had some pretty decent run at Southwind over the course of his career. Sung Jae, obviously. Jordan Spieth is a winner at the John Deere Classic. He was the first round leader here a year ago and has had some nice run here. A lot of the top names that you're going to see in terms of the John Deere, in terms of this week, just have never played the John Deere Classic in their lives. So if we kind of focus out a little bit and we go to the strokes gain model, we go to strokes gain and we'll go to past, let's call it 24 rounds. And we'll type in TPC Deere Run and just try to see on averages which players do the best of the players in the field. Again, a lot of guys are not going to have any rounds. 0 rounds for Scotty, 0 rounds for Xander, 0 rounds for Rory. So the best players, Ben Griffin, that's only 4 rounds. Davis Thompson, an 8 rounds. Spieth, Justin Thomas, Ludwig Oberg, Colin Morikawa, Cam Young. I think Cam Young is going to be a much better DraftKings play than outright bet, because I'm not going there in the outright betting market. But again, these are the types of courses where he generally does well. I think we saw Griot near the top of the leaderboard here last year as well. Take a look at the Jude. 20th, 31st, and 66th. Yeah, it was the driving got him in the final round a year ago. But another guy that has played Deere Run pretty well over the course of his career. Theegala, he's only 4 rounds. What are you really going to do? Gracerman as well. Gracerman played it pretty well at the John Deere. Obviously, he's coming off a great week at 3M that should have won a week ago. Again, probably not a guy you want to bet to win this event, but he's just been playing great golf. Maybe there's too much devastation and too much scar tissue about what happened to him at Sedgefield last week. Or you can say, dude, tee to green is just playing, he's been playing lights out since Pinehurst. The putter is rolling, the approach is rolling. He's been a fantastic driver of the ball. The scrambling has come around versus what we saw earlier on in the season. Maybe this is the type of event where you do see another top 10 for him. He's 6,900 on DraftKings this week. The other guy I'm betting is Tom Hoge, by the way, with 8 places. What? That's not good. With 8 places for him this week. And I'm not going to miss out on Hoge. I don't think he's ever been good at this tournament, and he really has not been good since the Travelers, I want to say, because he could not make a putt at the 3M a few weeks back. But to take a look at his season, he showed up in some bigger events. Pebble, obviously, he played pretty well when he won that tournament a few years back. He was 6th there this year. This course is going to be a little bit longer than that course, but we can see the somewhat of similarities with smaller fairways. Obviously, it's not as easy. We'll see how he's played at the Jude. The Jude! 12th in his debut almost a decade ago. He's been very bad the past few years, but you don't normally see those types of approach numbers. 3 consecutive years with strokes lost on the green for Tom Hoge. That is not indicative of what he is doing this year. He's been one of the better iron players in the world so far in 2024. So at 110 to 1, let's take one more gamble on Tom Hoge before he's done for the season, and then I just end up betting him in the swing season when he doesn't win again anyway. The 2 other bets, again, that I've made. So that's Ludwig. We go Ludwig, Hideki, Davis Thompson, and Tom Hoge on the PGA Tour, along with Justin Thomas, first round leader. Check out the free newsletter, Mayo Media on Substack, on Wednesday evening to see if I add anyone to that. You can subscribe for free down in the description as well. I get that sent directly to your email. Justin Thomas, first round leader. I'm betting Neiman at 8.5 to 1 at Live Greenbrier. And Joe Dean, the top 10 machine over on the DP World Tour for the D&D Czech Masters. I bet him at 60 to 1 to win. I believe he is down to 50 to 1 right now, but yeah. Joe Dean, guy I've been following, strangely enough, for some time here. Let's see. Joe Dean, official World Golf Rankings. He's just a guy. And just sometimes having the macro view of the DP World Tour, which I do. I watch it, but not as intently, and I obviously don't cover it. So I'm not paying that much attention. But when you start paying attention, like when you have some runners on the board and you're noticing leaderboards, sometimes there's just names that you're like, man, that guy's there every single week. Maybe I should start betting this guy. I had no idea before 4 weeks ago who Joe Dean was. He's on a really nice run. Yeah, he was 5 at the Soudal, 2nd at the KLM, 29th, and then he was 49th and 25th at the Open Championship. You just notice his name pop up from time to time. And on the DP World Tour, sometimes that is all it takes for anyone to really kind of break through for you. Looking at the odds of the players this week in Memphis, you can see some of the best numbers in the market right now. Bet365 is offering its 30% bonus on one player. That's the one that I used. If you do the enhancement, you get Ludwig up to 24 if you want to. Hideki's up to 30 if you want him on that over there. The best number on Hideki in the market is 28, and that is at FanDuel right now. So Odds Checker under the golf section will give you the spread of what the best numbers around the biz are right now. This is actually very reminiscent to how the Run the Sims prop sniper tool set up. When you get your subscription at runthesims.com for football season, we run our simulations and our projections, and we put them up like right here on the screen. Then we have all the books and whatever number of the prop that you're looking for juxtaposed to the projection next to it comes up, and you can just click through and boom, be on your way with some of those props. Highly recommend the Prop Sniper. That's sold as a separate package if you want it to be. If you don't care about DFS, you just care about betting on props, the Prop Sniper tool is pretty cheap, and code Mayo will get you 10% off that anyway. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Supercharger, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Everyone who tunes into the Pat Mayo Experience knows from time to time I like to talk to you about some health supplements that I end up taking, and I've been doing Timeline's Mito Pure now for about a month. Feel great? And I think you can too. Take 2 soft gels a day for 2 months, and you can see significant improvements in your cellular energy, your muscle strength, and your endurance. That was the big thing. I've been golfing more this summer and lifting less. Yet when I go back to the gym for my once a week, max lift, I'm not really atrophying that much. I'm not losing a ton of muscle, which is absolutely fantastic news for me and my golf game, because if you work out too much, then you get too sore, you get too stiff, you need to retain that flexibility. I'm retaining my muscle mass at the same time, although I'm not working out as much, and it comes in 2 product designs to fit your needs. They're berry powder, which is great to mix into your breakfast, yogurt, or daily smoothie. That's how I've been doing it. I've been eating some strawberries, raspberries, blackberries with a little bit of yogurt, a little bit of protein powder, then boom, Timeline's Mito Pure right on top of that. Or they have soft gels for the days where you're just on the run and wanted something convenient to grab and go. So, Timeline is offering 10% off your first order of Mito Pure right now. So go to timeline.com/Mayo to get that 10% off. All right? Looking at the weather, at least right now on a Tuesday evening as I record this, it's looking pretty good. Maybe on the weekend, not so much, but Thursday looks immaculate, which is just a very nice for the PGA Tour after what happened last week. Looks like a little bit of rain overnight into Friday, a little bit of winds picking up, but 15 miles per hour is, it's not nothing, but it's not too much to impact what you're up to. And with only 70 players in the field, there's not going to be massive wave splits anyway, so everyone's going to kind of get the same. Then we're going to see rain and some gusty winds. If there's no lightning, then they probably will play through this light of rain, maybe a little bit. Maybe they'll push the times back a little bit for the Saturday round, and then Sunday looks pretty awesome until a 3-hour stretch when the leaders would be finishing up, where it's 21 mile per hour gusts versus nothing all day. Maybe that's something we can keep in the back of our minds if that holds true, to maybe make some bets early on Sunday morning to see if we can capitalize on someone posting a number and maybe the leaders coming back. Because again, there are bogeys abound on this course. Now let's jump over to DraftKings. You can see I have pulled up the $6 30K tee to green. Right now, we're going to try to talk through how some lineup constructions are going to work and how the stat research works for the week. So let's jump over to my St. Jude model, which I've been running for ages. It's been very quality for me. It's led to some nice Shez Reavie top 5s, Brennan Todd top 10s, but here's what oh no, I have TPC Deer Run on still. Yeah, well, let's clear that one off. Probably don't want to look exactly at that. past 24 rounds right now, the numbers should not shock you. Scotty and Xander, Rory, Morikawa, Ludwig are the top 5 in all of the key stats that I'm looking for. Of note with Scheffler, not really been that great of a tournament for him in his career. No finish better than 14th in his career. I know that Underdog's not going to pay you out a bunch on it, but let's see. If we just get rid of all these, and you just want to try to take like the most Jesus take the wheel type thing ever, we'll go to standard and we'll go to Scotty. If we just go Scotty, higher bogeys, Xander, higher bogeys. Let's see. Yeah, like 258. Like that's not, 2.58. You'd want more than that for betting those two guys to go higher than bogeys. It's just funny, like, if the system doesn't realize the player, they're just seeing the correlation that you're doing, taking higher and higher. So if you could throw someone with, let's say, hey, I think that Rory's going to make more, all of a sudden you do get a great juice up of over 6-1 on the 3-legger. Or if you want to play the flex, 2 of the 3 hit, you get your money back, and it's 3-1 if you get all 3 correct. I'd just prefer to take the standard one if you wanted to do that. But with Scotty, although he is the best rated player in the field, we've seen it's just not been a great go for him, mainly on the greens, which we've seen different tournaments over the course of the year where, look, Scotty's not always going to putt the most horrible of every single player. Sometimes he can turn that around. But the tee to green even hasn't been that impressive. When he's gained over 6 strokes tee to green and 2 of the 6 times he's played this event, he's come 14th and 15th. Like that's nothing to write home about in that regard. So if we take a look at some of the ownership right now, it's still earlier on in the week as I'm doing this. So it's a lazy week for people, to be perfectly honest. Only 1,200 people have generated lineups so far on fantasynational.com. But what we're seeing in terms of who those people have been generating, Scotty and Xander, because you can make it work. Morikawa is up next. Ludwig seems to be the lowest of like the 10K and even like the Fleetwood Cantlay type guys. Then you have this like Hovland, Hideki. Hideki will probably get some juice. No one's really using Hovland at the moment. Sahith is another player who's going through the cracks. Ditto with Cam Young. Like you can build lineups with those guys. Sahith, let's just try that right now. Let's go Sahith, Cam Young. This is not fun to do by any means, but if you're going to try to gain some leverage, this is where you can do it. So let's throw those 2 guys in to start, and we'll see. We have $8,300 left for the other players. So going down the list, the popular names that people are filling out lineups with, Davis Thompson, I understand it. I bet him to win. I get it, $7,400. He's going to be a very nice play. Same as Seb Straka, who lost in the playoff and has played very well at the comp courses I talked about. Ben An, all of a sudden, is now 5%. And he's someone who's had good success at the Wyndham Championship in the past. It hasn't really been a great go for him. He didn't have the greatest. After starting with 3 straight birdies to start the Olympics, it was not fun after that. But at the St. Jude over the years, 37th, 12th, and since it's been, at this tournament, the WGCs or the playoff event, he had a very poor iron week last year. That's not something you normally see from Ben An, a bad iron week, but he is still one of the longer players. He can be quite accurate, and the putting has been better for him over the course of the season. You still get your outlier, classic Ben An type things, but at the Open he was pretty good. He had a rough patch over the course of the year, but that's over a mini part of the year after playing so well for so long. But I always liked him at these shorter courses where he can find some fairways and utilize his irons, and it doesn't seem like anyone's really going to Ben An this week. So he is a player that I wouldn't mind. No one, literally no one is using Homa, it looks like, at the moment. Other than that, Eric Cole projects to be quite popular, as does Ben Griffin at the moment in the bottom of the 6s. That's kind of it. Vegas should get some love as guys that are filling out their lineups. Brendan Todd, the Todd father, very much down at the bottom here, garnering a little bit of love. Same with Eckroat. These are the types of players that you can fill out your lineups with. I thought that Cam Davis was quite interesting. There's still a chance that I end up betting Cam Davis at this event. It's not a Donald Ross course, so that's not great. He didn't play well at a Donald Ross course last week at the Wyndham. It was very bad. Very bad. But comes in with some pretty good form, especially tee to green, just dominating tee to green. 3 straight events over 8 strokes gained tee to green. And I believe he's been quite good at this tournament. Yeah, past 2 years, 6th and 13th. I think people are kind of forgetting about that. And he comes in some of his best tee to green form in a while. And he's coming in lower owned than, projected right now, he's coming in lower owned than some of those other guys in the $6,000 area. Like you see at 6,800, Hoagie's being used more, Gracerman's being used more, McNeely, Griffin, not Dunlap, Eric Cole, Vic Perez is another one who's being generated more, although he'll probably come with less ownership. Sometimes it's good to juxtapose the two of like where people are using their favorites in a lot of sense. I think he'll be lower owned than Eckroat and Brendan Todd for that matter, or right around them. So that would be somewhat interesting to me. And he's a money saver right now. So we're back up to 8,800. So what do we want to do with the rest of our lineup? Like I said, I think I'm very comfortable going like Ludwig Hideki to start my lineups. And then we're back down at 7,000 and you can take Gracerman or Minwoo. I actually like Keegan Bradley a little bit this week as well. So you can fill out your lineup that way. Or if you didn't want to go the Ludwig route and you really demanded to throw in, like that's just getting different with Thegal and Cam Young. You don't need to use those two guys. It does seem like everyone is going to be using some combination of, it's probably going to be Xander, only because he's $1,000 cheaper. You can just manipulate your lineup a little bit more with him. And when we scrolled up, who was it going to be? Looked like it was going to be Morikawa, and then Henley, Tom Kim, Sung Jae, Aaron Rai. Although Aaron Rai is not going to garner as much as I think that there's only so many players that people can play from this mix. And there's no like overwhelming chalk anywhere underneath that as it's appearing to me right now. Maybe you guys have a better sense of what's going on. I'll try to build a chalk. So I want to finish off the lineup that I wanted to play in the first place. So I wanted to play Ludwig, and I wanted to play Hideki because I bet on those two guys. We're going to roll with them. And then we're going to go down and use, screw it. Let's use Gracerman. I was talking up Gracerman a little bit, so let's just put him into a lineup. When we try to play what's going to play out chalky, maybe it's going to be some sort of version of Morikawa, Fleetwood. We saw Tom Kim get a little bit of love, and then we're down to that 7,100 part, and we go a little bit above that. I did mention that it looks like Davis Thompson, Seb Straka are going to be relatively popular. Then you're at 65. Where's Eckroat at? Because he makes the most sense at the bottom of this lineup. Perez or Eckroat is probably the next guy in. I believe Adam Hadwin actually had a pretty good run here last year, and I think it was all putting based. If I had to, I can't believe he made the playoffs. I don't know what the hell he did throughout the course of the season. Like, he hasn't come, he came third at the Memorial at an elevated event. That's like good enough to get you in. He's been dog shit since then, but he was 16th here a year ago, 6.4 strokes putting against the field, but nothing really much to speak of outside of that. So I do think that you're going to see a lot of lineups chalk-wise end up looking like this week, where you're going to have your Morikawa Fleetwood starts, or this turns into Xander Fleetwood, then you drop down the Tom Kim to that next range up, where let's say it's not Fleetwood, let's say it's Xander instead of Fleetwood. You go Xander Morikawa, that means you need to take down Tom Kim to the other chalky guy in the mid fives, which is probably, it seems like you're missing out a little bit here on someone, whoever it's going to be, because there's not a lot of chalk galvanizing outside of Thompson and Straka seemingly in this range. Who did we see also pop up from that period? Let's see, Pendrith is doing pretty well here, Harmon, but it does seem like it's going to be Pendrith or Keegan Bradley or Gracerman as of right now. Or even Akshay. Like, Akshay is going to get that super steam towards the end because everyone loves playing Akshay, myself included. So maybe he is the actual answer to how this lineup gets filled out. And then you can, you still have 6,500 left that you could use Vegas, Denny. If you didn't want to use Austin Eckroat, I'll even switch this one out and say, hey, it's going to be Victor Perez. He grinded to get in. He needs a top 8 finish in order to qualify for Colorado next week at the BMW Championship. Maybe that's what we can do, and he can really funnel that forward. So yeah, that's what we'll try to do in that regard. I do want to take a quick look at the modeling to try to find some other names for you. I know I've talked through a few as we've gone along, but I want to make sure that I don't overlook this part and how I've actually created this model. So I can bring up the modeling on the screen, ball striking, approach, and off the tee. I really did overweight all of this, 20, 15, and 10. Greens and regulation gained at 10%, putting 10%, par 4s generally 10%, par 4s 450 to 500, 10%, opportunities gained, so your birdie chances 5%, driving distance split with fairways gained both at 5%. I'm not super concerned about scrambling or anything like that. I do understand that you're going to need to scramble well in order to not give up gigantic numbers, but just don't hit it in the water and you're scrambling. Then you won't even have to scramble most of the time. You'll just hit a bunch of greens and regulation. Like, the chipping of this course is not very difficult. So if you're scrambling from greenside, super easy, or some of the bunkers, super easy. You might have a few problems if your drives go into the water, your approaches go into the water. Then, not so much at time. Par 4 is 450 to 500 yards. This is where I like to start. These are the hardest holes on the course. Where are we going to make this up? So it's all the guys that you would normally think of. So, Scotty, Xander, Rory, Rye, Morikawa, the top 5. But then we're into Keegan, Noren, Ludwig, Nick Taylor, who had it going for a little bit over the course of the weekend at the Wyndham. I remember following him around. I was like, hey, Nick Taylor's doing stuff. Then he ended up missing the cut. But did he really miss the cut? Jesus, poor guy. What the hell happened to him coming? He must have just imploded on the Saturday morning when I wasn't there. Oh yeah, Nick Taylor, 74. Opened 63-74. How you do? I watched him come through. He made like 4 straight birdies, and then he stuck it and just missed a short putt on 17. I was like, oh man, Nick, I need you to get going. But he's still up there in terms of what we're looking for, in terms of those difficult par 4s. Last week, the key par 4 range was 400 to 450 yards. Not something that we've seen too much of this time around. Hubbard might be a little bit under the weather. Just throwing that out there in terms of some inside info. Hopefully he's feeling a little bit better. Did try to play it last week to improve his standings a little bit. Didn't really work out that well. Grayserman and Henley have both done pretty well. Bez and McIntyre are 2. I think McIntyre was pretty good here 2 years ago when it was WGC and it wasn't the playoff event, because I know that he probably didn't. Yeah, he played here in 2020 and 2021, was 15th in 2021. Obviously missed the cut last week. I remember this because I bet on him. Not great, Bob. Guys that have not been good from this range. Wyndham Clark, no shocker. Pavon, Taylor Moore, who was top 5, he was solo 5th a year ago at this course. Justin Rose, Dunlap. Justin Rose didn't end up making. Did Justin Rose make the field? I don't think that he did. I think he needed that chip in to make the cut to make the playoffs, and he didn't do it. Either way. How many guys do we have listed here? No, it's 7. I guess he's in. That makes sense, I suppose. Other guys who are towards the bottom of this, Ben Griffin, Cole, Knapp, Hadwin, Davis Thompson. Well, that's not great. Who else? Chris Kirk, Zalatoris, Eckroth. Some of the sleepers that we were talking about. Nick Taylor, from that one thing, seems to be pretty good. If we just try to sort by salary and see where some of these names pop up, who's like not dead last in the field. Seamus is 34th in the overall model, past 24 rounds that I built at $6,100. Johnny Vegas is 8th at $6,500. Other names to look at. Hoagie is still 20th. Over the past 24 rounds, EVR is 30th. Too much water for EVR. He's going to get rattled out there and just put it into the middle of it all week long. Keegan is 16th. Pendrith is 19th. Hoagie 20, as mentioned. Grayserman 25th. McNeely 28th. So if we shrink this size down a little bit and go past 12 rounds, that's usually how, like, who's the hot form guy coming in that we can kind of ride from the bottom end. Like, you're going to have your favorites at the top. This we know. Like, Hovland ranks 35th over the past 12 rounds. He's not even playing well. He's still 35th amongst this crew. And the Olympics is not involved in this modeling because we don't have the stats for that. Overall, taking a look at it, all of a sudden, Seamus Power has now gone from 35th to 18th. Been playing some pretty decent golf because we're not focusing on par 5s where he does pretty much have a letdown most of the time, but he just makes the cut every single week. Obviously, that's not important this week. Did have a top 12 at the St. Jude in 2018, but decent form coming in, and he's essentially free when you're trying to figure out these lineups. Patrick Rogers, 30th in the rankings. Hubbard, 33rd. Vegas is 2nd. Obviously, you throw a win in there, all of a sudden you're doing a little bit better. 29th is Pavon. Cam Davis is 5th. There we go. Like I said, I might end up betting Cam Davis. Where the hell is Cam Davis on the betting card? What are his odds this week? 125 to 1 at Bet Rivers, 110 everywhere else. That's something I can get behind. It might not be an outright win. It might be a top 20 or something like that. Or maybe I'll play it with the 8 placings in order to capitalize on the top 8 if he ends up doing that. But yeah, his numbers are actually quite good coming in. As when we went through the overall tee to green, we looked at his player card, I think that it did show itself out in that way. He actually has better numbers coming in than Grayserman, who was back-to-back second-place finishes. That's kind of crazy to think about. So DraftKings-wise and even betting-wise, Cam Davis is probably going to be a fixture on what I'm doing. Akshay is 12th, even with the miscut. Harmon 4th. I mean, I talked about guys that should play well at Wyndham, hit a lot of fairways, hit your irons and make some putts. I mean, that does lead me to believe Brian Harmon could be very good this week after being pretty mediocre a week ago, to be perfectly honest. Sung Jae, 8th on that list. Cam Young, 17th. It's funny because Cam Young gets judged as if he is a great player. And if you just kind of take a look at the overall of what he's been doing. He's been playing some pretty good golf. 31st of the Open. I mean, he was in the second to last group at the Wyndham before he imploded on the first 5 holes. The putting has been an abject failure for him over the past few months. But T31 each of the past 2 years, he's putted very poorly on these greens too, so it's probably not going to change anytime soon. But again, that's something that I would want to be looking at. I think that he is playing too well tee to green. I mean, when you take a look at three of his past measured tournaments, each of the past 3, over 7.5 strokes tee to green, that's hard to overlook when you're thinking about it in this way. It's just you're judging him as a guy who doesn't win. But at his price point, he's a guy that if he comes T9, you're laughing because you know that he's going to score a ton. He's always going to try to beat up on the par 5s if he can actually make some putts through the week. I might end up betting him first round leader. Boom! There we go. Cam Young. Let's add him to the list. I don't know what his odds are. As long as his odds aren't like 40 to 1. If he's like 50 to 1, 55, 60 to 1, then I can probably get in on Cam Young as first round leader. FantasyNational.com/Mayo gets you 20% off all of the tools you just saw, but really, it gets the app in your hand, the best leaderboard app in the business that you get with a Fantasy National membership, and you get 20% off using FantasyNational.com/Mayo. RunTheSims.com, code Mayo, gets you 10% off all the premium packages, but season-long NFL projections are completely free right now if you just sign up with an email. So I suggest that you go check that out, and code Mayo at Underdog Fantasy is going to get you a deposit bonus of up to $250, and you'll probably want to get into this prop pool and play along with. I mean, you can just, if you just use the link and you don't have an Underdog handle right now and use the link in the description for the round 1 play that I talked about earlier, it will embed the $250 bump first time bonus up to in that as well. If you just want to use that link, all fine by me. All final plays will be in the newsletter. You can find that in the description, completely free, with a full write-up, more notes, final bets, everything that you need to know. All right, smash the like while you're here. I'm Pat Mayo, and I will see you next time.
Mayo experience! Experience!